to our meeting here in the town hall. And just before I take any apologies, can I just, and I'm just acknowledging we have three councillors actually who have had bereavements in their family, and that's Mark Buchanan and Mark's grandfather, Ernie Buchanan. So just to acknowledge that, and also Barry and Anne-Marie, their uncle Jack McElduff. So to acknowledge that and pass our condolences to all the families concerned. Okay, with that, I'm going to take any apologies. And John, any apologies? Oh, is that there we go.
Councillor Catherine Kelly.
Thank you. And then Mark.
Apology from Councillor Victor Warrington.
Okay. Paul.
Councillor Thompson.
Okay. And then Adam. You're all there. I know there's no geez. And the Alliance are all here. So, okay. Thank you very much for that. And just at this stage now, before I go on to I'm going to allow Barry in just to note the passing of a very respected man in the community. So, Barry.
Thank you, Chair. This is about Monsignor Brendan Devlin and Tahar Brendan O'Devlin. And he was no ordinary scholar. He was from Ruski in County Tyrone near Gorgon, you know, Ruski. And when you mention his name to people, they say, what was he distinguished? You know, what was his distinction? And here's some of his distinctions. He died recently there, and he came home, a solemn homecoming to Ruski on Friday, the 22nd of September. Coincidentally, that was culture night, culture evening, and this was a very cultured man. So, Monsignor Brendan Devlin, he died aged 90. He died aged 92. He was the professor of Irish and French at Maynooth University for 30 years, from 1958. He wrote 40 books, translated the Bible from Hebrew into Irish, and he took part in negotiations with the Polish authorities on behalf of the Irish government and authorities to get back the Irish College in Paris. And he learned Polish to take part in the discussions so that the Polish wouldn't pull the wool over his eyes in the discussions. So I learned all this more recently about him. How I came to know him was at Ulster Arena at University in Belfast, Queen's University. One of his novels was on our curriculum in the Celtic Studies department on Branner Gan Cur. So he wrote 3 novels, he wrote 40 books. He was a celebrant at the funeral of Seamus Heaney, a fellow St. Colum's alumnus. And it's just quite amazing, you know, that he was then awarded the highest possible honour for a non-national by the French government for contribution to the French language abroad, Légion d'honneur, and not too many would get that. And that's essentially it. He translated key Vatican Council texts and church documents. He was a good friend of Pádraig Ó Féineachta. He translated the Bible from Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek into Irish. And he was just an intellectual giant, a polyglot, and somebody that we should all know was from our council district. And I think I'll leave it at that, maybe except to suggest that the chair of the council might write a letter just to his nearest, which would be nephews and nieces in that area, just to recognise our appreciation of his contribution. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Barry. Josephine?
Good evening, Chair, and thank you. And at the outset, Chair, I do too want to express my condolences to Mark, to Barry and to Anne-Marie on their recent bereavements. I want to thank Councillor McElduff for raising and bringing to the attention the enormous achievements of Monsignor Brendan Devlin. He certainly was an extraordinary man, and one of whose likes it will be a long time before we see again. A truly extraordinary man who lived a long life and a life packed full of learning and giving. And I think our society is all the richer for his life. So I would just like to second Councillor McElduff's proposal, Chair, that perhaps you would write to his relatives expressing our admiration and condolences on his passing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Josephine. Are we all happy enough with that, members? Yep. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to item number 2 then, and that's to sign the minutes of the council meeting held on the 5th of September. So first of all, we'll take for accuracy. Nolene?
Sorry, Chair, I just need to clear a conflict of interest later on.
Okay, we haven't just come to them yet.
Sorry.
We will. Okay, so we're going to take the minutes for accuracy first. Page 1, page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Diana?
Chair, thank you. It's on page 9.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Just, Chair, I wanted to raise item 8.7, Save Our Acute Services. My recollection is that my colleague made a proposal and it was seconded by Councillor Green. Now, in the debate that ensued, there were a number of proposals. But my question is, well, for accuracy, it doesn't mention the first proposal, but procedurally, am I correct that the first proposal should have been considered ahead of the second proposal?
First proposal that is seconded.
It was seconded by Councillor Green. The first proposal was that,
Yeah.
yes, they agreed to invite SOAS into a special council meeting.
I think it was seconded subsequent to the seconding of the second motion.
Chair, I'm sorry, I have listened to the tape on that. I just wonder, can that be checked, please? Because procedurally then I'm asking, is it correct that the vote went ahead in the manner that it did?
Yeah. We'll check it to see if that was it for the accuracy end of it. But then as the ruling went, that's the way it has been done. So that's the way it's going to stand.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Anything else online? 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Okay, can I have a proposer and seconder for the minutes? Marty and Roy. Okay, the minutes have been signed, so we're going to take any declarations of interest. Nolan?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry for jumping in a bit early there. I believe you're discussing on paper D, section 9, the council sponsorship of Christmas lights for community groups. I'd just like to declare that I am the chair of the Maguires Bridge Village and Rural Development Association, which will be more likely in receipt of that. I just wanted to declare that.
Okay, thank you. Josephine?
Thank you, Chair. Under matters arising, item 4.1, I just wanted to declare an interest as a member of the Executive Board of the Southwest GP Federation, and my own practice, Stroll Medical Practice, is a provider of GP elective services. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Josephine. Okay, no further declarations of interest. Okay, thank you. Going to go to matters arising then out of the council minutes of the 5th of September. So this is for matters arising, page 1, 2.
Thank you, Chair. Just in item 4.1, page 2, we've been asked to follow up in relation to the South West Acute Hospital and specifically the levels regarding overnight elective stay. Just to confirm, Chair, we did report the response from the Trust to the Council meeting on the 25th of July. So that is included on decision time. And in summary, what Mr. Gockian responded to specifically to that query was that the Trust has been working on rebuild plans and implementing a commissioned 10 elective inpatient operating sessions. And in respect of the Council's request to receive a rolling update on the SWA Overnight Elective Stay Centre, we would arrange to present regular updates on this at the planned Health and Social Care Services subcommittees as part of the Trust's regular briefing to the Council. So our error in not remembering that at the meeting, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Moving on to page 3. Seamus?
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to the conference in Belfast, the investment conference, had we any update on that? Was it as we suspected, very Belfast orientated, or did Fermanagh, Omagh get any mention? I know the Chief Executive was up and probably batting strongly for us, but probably against the tide. So any update on that?
Yes, Chair, thank you. So I think it's fair to say, Chair, the event was extremely Belfast focused. We did have representation from the Council District in that Mannock presented at one of the breakout sessions on the green economy and advanced manufacturing, and Terex were also in attendance and did a presentation. The bulk of the formal sessions were mainly government, Westminster government ministers, providing some overviews, and specific reference was made to the Windsor framework. There was a prospectus that accompanied the summit, and it included a number of opportunity sites, and all of those were within Belfast City, not even across Northern Ireland. There was probably quite a well-trailed jobs announcement by EY, which referred to 1,000 jobs within Belfast and the Northwest, but there was certainly nothing beyond that for the district.
Okay, Mark?
Thank you, Chair. And it's in relation to 4.3 on page 3. And the Chief Executive will recall that in the July meeting, shortly after that meeting, I submitted a number of questions on procurement and thresholds, and even how the procurement exercise was utilised previously in relation to a number of Halloween events. And you might recall, Chair, that in the September meeting then, 6 weeks later, I raised the fact that I hadn't had a response, and an assurance was given at that meeting that the responses would be very quickly drafted up and circulated widely for all members' benefit. But unfortunately, I mean, a month on, so another 4 weeks, so 10 weeks in total, I haven't received a single response to a single one of them questions. And they were all fairly straightforward, all fairly factual, fairly non-contentious. So it's just really to express disappointment at that point, because particularly, I mean, we're here as the 40 elected members of this council, particularly when it comes to any financial matters. Whenever members seek information and seek clarification, I do think it's worth putting on the record again the necessity for responses and for answers to be provided quickly. And I think that's especially important at this time of year as we prepare to enter into the rate setting and estimates process, because ultimately we're not elected to sit here as 40 nodding heads. And so whenever we and I or any other member submit a number of questions, I do think it's reasonable to expect questions or responses rather in a reasonable period of time. I, for one, don't think 10 weeks without any response to any answer is reasonable. So it's really just clarification from the Chief Executive in terms of when we can expect
point made, Mark.
I think, firstly, Chair, I suppose in the context of information, so certainly members require information to take decisions. That is always provided. I think what the councillor has requested, and I have received all of to the best of my knowledge, the information that the member has sought, so I should be able to communicate that to members, if not tomorrow, certainly by the end of the week. However, what is actually been requested is historical information that's not pertinent to decisions before the council.
Okay. Barry?
Going back to 4.2, I want to thank you, Chair, as Chair of the Council, for hosting the visit. And I won't stray into territory that Councillor Mahon's going to detail later on, in his proposal, and Councillor Hawkes. But, you know, just to say thank you for hosting that event. It was a very valuable event. There was some mention of possible follow-up, you know, bringing a trade delegation to this area, or, you know, potential investors, people who might be interested. And it was even suggested that that would happen very soon, you know. So is there any detail on that? I wouldn't necessarily expect there to be just yet, because it's very soon, but there was a hint that maybe Joe Kennedy would be back, because I took the opportunity to invite him to the Tyrone County final, thinking he'd be about on the 29th of October. Thank you, Chair.
That could well be an invite you might have to send. He definitely said at the event that there was a possibility of investors coming over in October, and that he would do his best to see if some of those, at least, investors could make themselves available to come this direction. So to my knowledge, we haven't.
No, Chair, nothing additional, other than I did hear it referenced on the radio earlier that the expectation is that that trade mission will take place in October, but we have heard nothing further by way of details. But certainly, Chair, maybe if members wish, we could extend perhaps a formal invitation. Obviously, you did at the day, and maybe to convey members' thanks for Mr. Kennedy's visit.
Okay, thanks, Barry. And have a seconder for that, Paul. Okay, are we all agreed, members? Yep. And just to say that, you know, that got quite a bit of coverage. So, and a lot of people were aware that Fermanagh is open and ready for business. So even that in itself has generated, but I think Barry's quite right that we need to capitalise on that now and follow it up. And I had asked Alison Dees looking at the possibility of creating some linkages in Boston with some of the cement, because there was obviously quite a focus on some of the cement factories out there. So we're doing some follow-up work to see if that can be done, as well as bringing people this way, is bringing them the other way as well. Okay, anything else on 3? No, on 4?
Thank you, Chair. Just on item 4.6, just to draw members' attention to the correspondence from the Permanent Secretary in the Department of Health. This was relating to the cutbacks, and in essence, the Permanent Secretary's noting members' concern, but highlighting the difficult financial situation in which the department finds itself.
Okay. Nolan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was also going to comment on that letter, specifically the funding cuts to women's health services and listener ski. I understand what they're saying about the budgetary constraints and the cutbacks, but I was just wondered if we could just get a little bit more clarification on why women's services specifically were cut. In listener ski, it does mention all GP elective services having a funding cut, but why was that chosen specifically to be scaled back? The women's services and listener ski.
Okay.
Thank you.
I can take that. Oh, we need a seconder for that. Garvin, thank you. Okay, we all agreed, members? Okay. Anything else on 4? 5? 6? 7? 8?
Chair, on page 8, just to draw members' attention, item 8.4, in your other correspondence folder, we have a letter from DFI. This was in relation to the A32 and specifically the need for the roadworks to be prioritised in the context of the South West Acute Hospital, and that this had always been recognised as part of the business case investment. So really the response is from the Deputy Director of Major Projects, noting the works that have been completed to date and identifying, which we knew from the previous correspondence, 2 further sections of the route which are included in the plans, albeit do require a future decision from an incoming minister.
Okay, Josephine?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Alison. Just I want to propose to note the correspondence, Chair, and again, extremely disappointing. I mean, the upgrade to the A32 was something which was considered an absolute necessity to ensure the safety of patients being transferred from Omagh and district to our new acute hospital in Enniskillen. And it's very disappointing that those improvements have not yet been completed all those years ahead. Chair, we all understand about the budgetary constraints, but I mean, we have been told by DFI Roads that some of these sections have been shovel ready for quite a considerable period of time. And I just feel it's not good enough, really, that you know, the safety of our constituents is being compromised by the dangers of that journey along the A32. So I think we just have to keep a watching brief on this, Chair, and hopefully the budgetary situation will improve. And if that is the case, we'll be looking to have that road prioritised into the future. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Have I a seconder to note, John? Okay, thank you, members. Anything else on 8, 9, 10, 11?
Thank you, Chair. Just on page 11, just some correspondence in relation to the motion on the All Island Strategic Rail Review. So the first, which is dated the 20th of September, is really an acknowledgement from the department advising that some of the excuse me, some of the information sought is being treated as an environment information request. So it'll take some time for that to be released. And then the second letter is from the Permanent Secretary. Sorry, it is in your other folder, members, at item 1491. And it's noting the Council's disappointment at the exclusion of the rail link to Fermanagh, referring to the EIR acknowledgement, and then also noting the consultation of the Strategic Environmental Assessment, which closed on Friday and which the Council submitted a response to.
Okay, thanks, Alison. John?
Sorry, Chair, I had one to come in on the 8.1, but if anybody else wants to speak on 9.1 first, and then you go back to 8.11 afterwards, if that's okay.
We'll
If it keeps it tidier for you, Chair.
We'll go with you on this occasion.
Thank you, Chair.
Adam?
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, just to help you out procedurally, I'll propose to note the correspondence, but I just want to state how ridiculous it is that information which was key to the decision making was not made available during the initial consultation response. How mad is that the information that was used to make the decision was not made available? And it's just really staggering and blows my mind that they're just going to delay on that. But Chair, there's no point going on and on at this stage whilst we're waiting for it, but we'll wait to see what it comes back with when it does. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Josephine?
Thank you, Chair. I will second the noting of the correspondence.
Thank you.
Chair, there was a time when many people thought that it was a bit of a pipe dream to have rails re-established in our neck of the wood. I don't believe that that is the case, Chair. And I recently had the opportunity of attending a wedding in the west of Scotland. And even in the smallest of towns, they have small railway stations and the service being used by the local population. And it really made me realise what we had lost, the extent of what we had lost in terms of public transportation. And I think that we as a council need to keep the pressure on to make sure that the dream of re-establishing the railways becomes a reality into the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Josephine. Okay, John?
Thank you, Chair. On 8.11, the correspondence about the animal welfare. This is now gone. This is a month where we have been meeting the costs. If we were a private sector firm contracted in and not a public body, we would have withdrawn our services. And I believe DAERA are abusing the council by saying that we are continuing to cover this. And it's vital that this is covered, but it is an abuse. And I think it's very disrespectful that they haven't sent something back at this stage after a month to say what they're trying to do to resolve the situation. And we're having to meet our ratepayers are going to have to meet the costs of something that they're statutorily supposed to provide, and we're doing it on their behalf. So I don't know how we word that back to them, but I think after a month they should be at least updating us what they're trying to do to resolve it, because at this stage they don't seem to be doing anything. They're quite happy to let us tick along and meet the costs.
You're making that as a proposal, John? Okay, thank you. And John Feely?
I'll just second that proposal because I want to put on the record I think it's ridiculous what the department's doing at the minute too.
Okay, are we all agreed, members? Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else on 11? 12? 13?
Just on item 9.2, this was the motion in relation to the worsening local situation with bovine TB, and a response been received from the Permanent Secretary. I suppose just to highlight, Chair, that within the motion, as members will be aware, we'd asked towards the end of it in detail, to explain in detail what targeted, practical and actual measures it's now undertaking to reduce the spread of the disease. I think there's no reference in the letter to the district. It does appear to be just more a generic response regarding potential causes and general measures that the department have put in place. So members may wish to seek some further clarity.
Okay. Mark?
Thank you, Chair. And it's on the same issue, and I'd agree completely with the Chief Executive in terms of the letter. There's plenty of words within it, but there's actually, whenever you drill down into it, there's very little actual detail or commitment. And I mean, the letter says what it says, but there were two issues. Or my main frustration with the letter is, and it's the last two paragraphs, Chair, of the letter. You'd almost think one person wrote 3/4 of the letter and then somebody else came in and wrote the last two paragraphs. And if I could just very quickly quote a couple of comments. BTB eradication cannot be delivered or cannot be achieved by government alone. There is a need for industry to commit to measures. Eradication will take significant commitment. I mean, what a tone-deaf response from a department whenever they're dealing with an agricultural industry that has been drowning from this disease for decades and decades. So I'd agree, just to follow up with the Chief Executive's words, I'd make a proposal that we write back to the department, Chair, and ask them specifically to address the issue or the reasons behind the spike or the soaring rates of BTB locally here in Fermanagh, and then also to provide an indicative time frame against each of the 21 action points within the TB eradication programme, rather than just only speaking in these vague high-level terms. I think farmers, particularly here in the county, want to see action on the ground. So I'd make that as a proposal, Chair.
And are you noting the correspondence? Thanks, Mark. Anthony?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree there with what Councillor Evans has said there. Yeah, I'm second the two proposals there.
Yes, seconding the noting and seconding the proposal. Thanks, Anthony. Okay, members, are we all in agreement? Okay, thank you. Anything else on page 13? 14?
Chair, we have a response from in relation to item 10.1. This was regarding the speed cameras, just from the Northern Ireland Road Safety Partnership, and just referring to the proposed increased deployment for both Derrylin and Belcoo.
Sorry. Adam?
Thank you, Chair, and I welcome the response. It's good to see that they're going to consider these two locations, but I would like to, it was interesting that they mentioned they're going to do a project reviewing it aiming to start January 2024. I think everyone in the council would be very interested in maybe engaging with that for their own areas. We all know of areas where speed is a concern and where such infrastructure may be beneficial. So I would suggest, Chair, that I propose that we'll write back to them just to ask, is there going to be an opportunity for engagement in this? And if so, could this council be part of that engagement and be updated on the project as it goes, to allow us to feed in the local knowledge that we have as well? I know they're talking to their neighbourhood policing team, but I know as councillors it's something that we very much would like to be involved in. I'm sure everyone would agree with that. Thank you.
You're making that as a proposal, Adam, and you're noting the correspondence. Thank you. Seamus?
Thank you, Chair. Just an issue when this issue of speed cameras has come up. I would also like that the council would write to the Department of Infrastructure to inquire why the 20-mile-an-hour scheme that has been running around schools, primary schools and secondary schools has been abandoned this year. There is no schools being put forward for this. They've stood back from this project, and for some reason, and they're not doing any more of them. I believe that all the schools that got the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit at school times were really thankful for it. Thinks it has been a great success. So I'm perplexed why the department has decided to stop this scheme. So I would propose that we actually write and query that and see when they're going to reintroduce it.
Okay. Seamus? John?
Thank you. I'm glad Seamus has brought that point up. I happen to be visiting relatives up on the north coast today and further up the coastline towards Ballymena. In one village, there's 2 schools, and both of them had 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. I also passed a substantial, and I happen to note a substantial number of schools, and I can barely name the few schools that we have in our district that have got it. So perhaps if Seamus would include just a breakdown again, just to show how well we've been treated with the share out of this scheme.
Yeah, I'm sure Seamus is happy enough with that. Are we all agreed with that proposed and seconded? Did we write there? Okay, I have Adam's proposed, and Adam has noted the correspondence. So Garvin?
Just a second, Councillor Gallon's proposal.
And second and noted.
Yeah.
Okay, are we all agreed there as well, members? Thank you. And then continuing on page 14.
Chair, thank you. Chair, we have 3 items of correspondence in relation to the RAC, reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete. So we have the response from the Department of Education, the Department of Finance, the Department of Education noting they've written to all schools and are undertaking structural surveys as required. The Department of Finance, we had asked about the building regulations as well as just a general update on the finding of the surveys. Will feed back into DOF, and there's no proposal at this stage to make any amendments to the building regulations. And also, Chair, just then within the other correspondence folder, we received a letter yesterday from the Department of Health regarding the work that they have undertaken, which primarily relates to guidance that's been issued to the trusts, but also the fire service and ambulance service. And I suppose on a positive note, the 4th point of the letter advises that based on evidence to date, they don't anticipate any major issues for the Northern Ireland Health Estate.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Seamus?
Thank you, Chair. And just in relation to the concrete in the schools, I had sent them a Freedom of Information request, and I got word back today on it. And I had asked them at what stage they had been informed about this concrete and when they had acted on it. They have literally only acted on it now. They're saying they don't think there's much of it in any schools in the north, but the fact is they don't know. And back in 2018, they got the report from the British government. Nothing was done. No surveys was carried out, and they're only doing that now. So I think this people has questions to answer around this, and hopefully they are right, and that there's very little of this dangerous material used in our schools. But until these surveys are done, nobody knows, and that's the truth of it.
Seamus, will you note the correspondence?
Yeah.
Thank you. Diana?
Chair, thank you. I'm happy to second the noting of the correspondence. Just if you permit me, please, at item just under 4.5, item 2, the letter from the Department of Finance, and it mentions the civil service handing back, vacating some offices. Just brought to mind the plan that the civil service, NI Civil Service, had to operate hubs in Omagh and Fermanagh. And we haven't really heard very much. If, just could I request that a report is brought back to a future meeting, please? Or if the Chief Executive could update us, please? Thank you, Chair.
No, Chair, thank you. I think if maybe Councillor Armstrong was content, Chair, we'd write formally to the Department of Finance, who are the, if you like, the lead actors in this project, informally. My understanding is that because of the wider implementation of hybrid working across the civil service, there is a very significant review of civil service estate, which has resulted in the pausing of that the remote working hubs project. We do the scheme in Oma proceeded at County Hall. It certainly was to be a later implementation in terms of Enniskillen, but I think there'd be no harm in getting that formal response from the department.
You, Chief Executive, yes, could I propose that we do write back, as you say, and get further information? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Diana. I have a seconder for that. Mark, are we all agreed? Okay, thank you. Anything further on page 15? And that concludes the minutes. Thank you, members. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 5, and that's to consider the report of Environmental Services Committee meeting held on the 6th of September. Okay, so for accuracy, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And Debbie, yes, you're proposing, thank you. And have a seconder? Carvin, thank you. Okay. And just, yeah, so we're going to do matters rising in page 1, page 2, 3, 4, 5. Seamus?
On page 4, on the call for evidence for the agriculture, environment and rural affairs, the call for evidence is that has been sorry, it was the 14th of September, the initial deadline for responses was. They agreed to put it back to the 29th of September, but I heard today it has been now put back to the end of October. So just for information, for anyone that wants to respond to that, I believe there is quite a number of organisations that wanted to put in a detailed response. So the department has agreed to put that back to the end of October. So just let people know.
Good news in that respect. All right.
Page 5, item 6.3. The A5N2 cross-border committee meetings or minutes. But just on the A5, there has been a significant correspondence, as I understand it, today. And
it's on the agenda for later on.
On the agenda. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mary. Okay. Anything else on 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9? Okay. Thank you, members. Moving to confirm the minutes of the Special Planning Committee meeting on the 11th of September. So, all right. So, accuracy, page 1, 2, and 3. And as the chair is not here, another member of the committee that was present. And John, thank you. And Bernard, thank you. Okay. Matters arising, page 1, 2, and 3. And to consider the report of Regeneration Community on the 12th of September. So for accuracy, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Vote of is Mark. You wouldn't opposing, thank you. You just
Happy to propose, Chair. Thank you.
thanks. And Diana?
Thank you, Chair. Second. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Diana. Matters Rising, page 1, 2, 3. Anthony?
Chair, it's just on item 5.2, Christmas planning there about the Christmas trees. I was contacted by somebody after this was issued looking for Christmas trees, and I was just wondering, could I propose that the Belcoon District Community Association gets a Christmas tree?
I didn't catch the last piece there, Anthony.
Sorry, Thomas. The Belcoon District Community Association gets a Christmas tree. I'd like to propose that.
Okay.
For that.
Elaine?
Yes, I'd like to second that.
Okay. Thanks, Elaine. Are we in agreement there, members? Okay.
Check if members are content. We'll certainly work on that basis. There are a limited number of supplies, so we'll just see availability, but we'll liaise with the group. Sure.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Okay, anything else on 3, 4, 5, 6? Debbie?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask regarding the community premises grants that when I was looking through the list, I noticed that some who weren't successful was because they were not mixed use. And I'm just wondering what mixed use means and why they were turned down. Because I'm aware of a group who I haven't spoken to, but I'm just aware of them, that have coffee mornings and food safety courses and let other organisations use their buildings. But they were turned down because they weren't mixed use. And I'm just wondering that, you know, obviously we don't want to burden community groups and organisations with a heavy application process, but, you know, what scrutiny is there from councillors? Is there a better way that groups can demonstrate that they are of mixed use? And are those that are getting funding, especially on a yearly basis for their buildings, are they showing that that those buildings are being used for mixed use throughout the year? I'm just really perplexed of what mixed use actually means. If somebody could help enlighten me on that.
Chair, I'll do my best, but it does strike me it may be something that we could report more fully. But in general terms, it is the variety of the programme, it's the accessibility of the programme to the wider community, and it is so daytime or evening activity. And normally the groups are required to provide a sample of their programme to accompany the application form, and that would be part of the assessment process, particularly based on the elements that would be subject to the application. I mean, sir, I know Councillor Coyle's not mentioning the groups or groups in question, but be certainly happy to maybe about that information that we could provide some further details. But that would be generally how mixed use groups would be described and assessed, and that would be the means of collecting the information. But we can certainly provide that more in more wholesome detail through a committee report if that would be of assistance. And it does set out also in the guidance notes the areas that would be eligible for consideration and how groups would be assessed against the various criteria.
Okay, thank you, Alison. It's just that there was one women's group in particular, and I think, and I would know of them. They haven't contacted me, so I'm not going to mention who they are, but I was just actually quite surprised when I saw that, that was down. And also regarding the confidential when you went into confidential?
If it's in confidential, we'll deal with it in confidential.
No, I know. That's what I was just going to say. But can I just ask if the minutes that were given and were referred back to confidential, are we passing them now or are we passing them in confidential?
In confidential.
Right, that's okay. I just want clarification on that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so that'll get reported back at. Yeah. Okay, anything else on 6, 7, 8, 9, 10?
Chair, just on item 10, we had a couple of pieces of information to also to seek updates, but also to provide you with an update. So firstly, in relation to nominations for the Fermanagh Herald Business Awards on the 13th of October and the Omagh Chamber of Commerce Awards on the this Friday, the 6th of October, we're just awaiting the Sinn Féin nominations for Omagh. The others are in place. And just to confirm in terms of the Fermanagh Herald Business Awards, just before taking the Sinn Féin nominations, Councillor Mahon will be representing the Democratic Unionist Party and Councillor Crawford, the Ulster Unionist Party. Councillor Gannon already confirmed.
Okay. John?
Thanks, Chair. For the Omagh Business Awards, can I nominate Councillors McNulty, McColgan, McElduff and McCann. And for the Fermanagh Business Awards, Councillors Anthony Feely, McArdle and Bruff.
Yeah, can I hear? I'm struggling to hear any of these conversations, guys. So we've got to use the mics, and we've got to use the mics with a little bit of forthright sort of there, because I thought I was the only one not hearing anything, but we're struggling at the top table here. I think other members are struggling as well. So John, in that spirit, can I get you to do that again?
Yeah. Apologies, Chair. Can I nominate Councillors McNulty, McColgan, McElduff and McCann to the Omagh Business Awards, and Councillor Anthony Feely, Councillors Bruff and McArdle to the Fermanagh Business Awards, and I hope you heard me.
That's done and dusted this time around. So I suppose if we try to keep it at that level, it'll help the old chairman out here. Okay.
Chair, thank you. Also on that page, just the subsequent recommendation, we'd been asked to clarify if there was an opportunity for a day delegate attendance at the Northern Ireland Hotels Federation exchange event. And just to confirm, there is provision for day delegate attendance. It's £230 per person. That covers tickets for the 2 days, and travel costs would be extra.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Okay, nothing else on page 10. Page 11. 12. Elaine?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was going to bring this matter in under any other business, but if you let me bring it in now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. In light of concerns held by myself and many in our community relating to men of all ages, mental health and well-being, and a perceived lack of support for them, particularly in rural areas, and exacerbated by numbers of factors including the cost of living, unemployment, family relationship breakdown, gambling addiction, victims of domestic abuse, pressure to provide for family, etc. I would like to propose that the Council invites the Men's Action Network and the Men's Advisory Programme to an informal meeting with councillors and provide us with information around the support services that they offer to men in the Fermanagh and Omagh district who are struggling with their mental health. As is World Mental Health Day on Tuesday, 10th of October, we hear a lot about it being good to talk, but unfortunately there still seems to be a stigma surrounding mental health in our community, particularly for men and particularly for those who are told for so long to man up and get on with it. It can be difficult to change attitudes and behaviour. Men are less likely to open up to their family and friends about their mental health, which can have worrying consequences, including addiction, self-harm, and at worst, taking their own life, which we all know has a devastating impact on families and communities. That is why it's vitally important that these services are there for many people who might be more comfortable speaking with people outside their immediate circle, particularly at a time of crisis. So once again, I propose that we invite MAN and MAP to an informal meeting with us to discuss the service they offer to our district. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Elaine. Roisin?
I'd like to second the motion there. Am I saying that right, Emma?
Proposal, yep.
Proposal, yeah.
Yep.
And I just wanted to tell the Ashes Centre and the correspondence of that, just to make you aware that I have a successful outcome. The Ashes Centre meetings started back last night. Just to make you aware that I met with the Trust about a week and a half ago, along with West Tyrone MP Orla Begley, and that the meetings have started last night. So just to let you be aware of the outcome. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair, just maybe in light of Councillor Devine Gallagher's update there, obviously the minute has been adopted and it was to make further representations to the Trust, but if matters are now resolved, maybe we would just then note that that has been satisfactorily resolved if councillors content to do that on that basis.
Propose accordingly.
Yeah. Okay. Josephine?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and I want to support Councillor Bro in her proposal and thank her for bringing these excellent services which support mental health and well-being for men to the attention of Council. I think that we are all rightly concerned regarding problems that exist within our society at present regarding mental health, and men in particular are often reluctant to come forward and ask for help. Chair, we had a meeting this morning in Omagh looking at the action plan for the Omagh neighbourhood renewal area, and under the health sector, we felt that there was some difficulty in disseminating knowledge about the support services that were available, and it was recognised that public representatives do have a role to play in bringing to the attention of the general public the support services that are out there. So I think it's an excellent suggestion that we should come and have an informal presentation on these services. And just while I'm on that topic, I do want to highlight to members the excellent services for mental health provided by Aware NI, which provide a range of face-to-face and online support services for people who are experiencing depression, anxiety and bipolar disorder. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Josephine. Seamus?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I want to commend Elaine for bringing this proposal. I think it's vital that men's mental health, indeed mental health in general, is highlighted. I heard a statistic there during the week and I actually couldn't believe it, that it was true, but I believe it is true, that for men under 50, suicide is the biggest killer. I find that extraordinary, but that seems to be the fact. And so I believe anything we can do to highlight the issue and help people along, we need to be doing it. So yeah, thanks, Elaine, for bringing that.
Yeah, thanks, Seamus. Barry?
Okay, just still on the mental health subject, but commend Councillor Bruff for the proposal. Can I propose that we write to the Trust asking for the Trust to detail what recreation facilities are available in the inpatient Elm and Lyme wards? I'm aware and I'm advised that they're quite poor. The staff are doing tremendous work, but simple things like a pool table being damaged, very few facilities of that nature to, improve the experience. So recreation facilities for inpatients at Elm and Lyme, if we could inquire about that and lobby for improvements, simple improvements which would make a difference in people's lives. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Barry. Have I a seconder for that? Stephen? Okay. Are we all agreed on Barry's proposal, seconded by Stephen, that we write and seek that clarification and improvement if possible? And then on the excellent proposal of Elaine, seconded by Rasheen, are we all agreed, members? Okay, thank you. And just, I suppose, to take the opportunity to say that I had the opportunity as chair to go to the OMA Library to a lot of the voluntary organisations that provide so much support and services, and manned by volunteers, people that are giving of their time and going out there and helping. So I think, you know, as well as the bigger organisations, there's a lot of smaller organisations out there that can provide help. And certainly every day we become more aware of the need for people to be connected up with those services. And I think, as Elaine has said, there is a great role for councillors to be able to keep passing on this information and highlighting it, whether it's on our own social media streams or whatever, you know. So hopefully this intervention this evening will help somebody out there get that support and help that they need. Okay, moving on. Have we anything else on 12? 13. Okay, thank you. I'm going to move to consider Policy and Resources Committee meeting held on the 13th of September. Accuracy first, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Stephen is proposing. Have I a seconder? Eddie, thank you. Matters arising, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Thank you. We're going to now consider the delegation of council powers to the following committees in October. First of all, Environmental Services Committee to consider a report on draft response to consultation on the draft producer responsibility obligations, packaging and packaging waste regulations. So could I have a proposer and a seconder for that? Anne-Marie and Paul. Okay, thank you. And Seamus?
Just on that, could I haven't seen that consultation. Could somebody just give me a quick brief what that, like, would the likes of silage wrapping and that come into that, or what type of packaging and that are we talking about?
John.
Thank you, Chair. The document, the consultation really comes in two parts. Chair, there's a focus that's very much on producers of packaging and waste packaging. So it's very much aimed at the industry and large scale manufacturers. There's also elements within the document that are aimed at local authorities and those organisations who would be responsible for managing the onward disposal of packaging waste after it has been collected. I'm trying to think now in terms of the draft response. I haven't got it open in front of me now. I don't know if there's an explicit reference to farm packaging, farm waste, but my recollection of the detail is that it would fall within the definition of packaging, but not as a producer, rather as as packaging that's arising from the materials that have come from the producer. So it would be the producer of the plastic that would be falling within the scope of the legislation, but then the collection of the packaging would fall within the scope of the proposal.
Okay, happy enough, Seamus? Okay, thank you. We'll go on to 13.2, and that's Policy and Resources Committee delegation to consider report on the response to consultation on the action plan on integrated education in Northern Ireland. By Josephine and Stephen McCann, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to correspondence. And we have a number of correspondence here, so Alison.
Yes, Chair, thank you. The first letter is from DFI, and this is in relation to the Council's request really for an update in relation to flooding for Fintna. And I suppose maybe, Chair, just the penultimate paragraph on page 1 is maybe the most relevant. A lot of reference in this letter to the community resilience and the various schemes, but I suppose the key issue is that the proposed engineering solution doesn't meet the economic threshold, and as such is not likely to progress. And I think that would be something that would cause members concern.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Steve?
Thank you, Chairman, and the Chief Executive hit the nail on the head. First of all, I just want to commend the Fintna community resilience and the community volunteers in Fintna, and obviously the residents who are the first to react to storm conditions and to heavy rainfall, and indeed they're out that last incident as well, and only for their proactiveness there had been a whole lot more damage done. But going by that letter from the department there, basically we'll fire down a couple of sandbags to Fintna and you can work away. And is that a good enough response? I don't think it is, to be honest. Now, what we would normally do in this sort of scenario would be we would write to the Minister for Infrastructure, but unfortunately, due to the attitude of one party, that's not happening. We don't have an executive, so we can't write to the Minister for Infrastructure. But you know, in terms of how we take this forward, Chair, I'm happy to seek advice. You know, maybe.
Chair, maybe if members were content, I think it's probably long overdue that we have received a presentation from the relevant director within DFI Rivers as to what the detail of the solution would be in the approach. I also think that there have maybe been some instances where the economic threshold has not necessarily passed 1, but interventions have progressed. And I mean, there's obviously the council previously has raised particular concerns around rural proofing of such decisions, vis-a-vis economic impact as well. So maybe in the first instance, we'd actually invite the lead official. The permanent secretary obviously would know that area particularly well. And I think seek perhaps an update as to how schemes can be remodelled when economic constraints are being presented.
I'm happy to propose that formally, Chair. And I suppose we'll see from the correspondence that this isn't a 1-in-100-year event. 2008, 2011, 14, 15, and more recently, you know, so it's something that's going to be, you know, going by that trend, and obviously climate change, etc. is going to be an issue that's going to be ongoing for that area. So we do need to find a solution.
You're noting the correspondence?
And note, yeah.
Thanks. Have we a seconder for John Lowry? Thank you. And John, you are prepared to second the note in correspondence? Thank you. Okay. Thanks, members. We'll move into 14.2.
Chair, this letter comes back really for activity over the summer, and it was regarding gambling legislation. The council made a series of representations at that time, and this response is on behalf of the Minister for Sport, Gambling and Civil Society. I suppose a couple of interesting aspects, Chair, is really that in the opening paragraph it sets out the status of legislation is there are only limited elements of it actually apply to Northern Ireland. And then there is a general overview of what the government is doing specifically around the advertising code.
Okay. Seamus?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, when you read through it, it definitely is very limited, the rules and regulations around it. It all seems to be voluntary. There is nothing cast in stone. There seems to be no law. It's up to the industry to follow the advertising code, as far as I can see. One of the lines is where they say, for example, gambling adverts must not seek to appeal to children or vulnerable people or portray, condone or encourage gambling behaviour that is socially irresponsible or could lead to financial, social or emotional harm. Well, they're failing miserably there on every one of them aspects, and all of this seems to be on a voluntary basis. They also state that most gambling organisations follow the code, most. So I don't know where you'd go with that. I think it's very limited on the powers that they have. And as far as I see, gambling adverts go on all the time while sporting events are on, especially the Premier League. And I think it's disgraceful, and that the gambling minister or the minister over that sends this letter as if to appease us. Well, it's far from it as far as I'd be concerned.
You noting the correspondence, Seamus? Thank you. Debbie?
Thanks, Chair. Keeping on the issue of gambling, it was disappointing that the workshop was cancelled for last week, and I'm looking forward to that when it's rearranged. But I did go to an event in Belfast last week to a presentation from GamCare and the Danske Bank, and it was done through my own trade union. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because the figures that they were showing, and in fairness, it wasn't here in the north, it was UK-wide, but I'm just going to give you two of them. 50% of 11 to 16-year-olds gambled in some form last year. And there's, at the minute, with problem drinking or drugs, there's 11,000 11 to 16-year-olds receiving some kind of help. 30,000 are receiving help with problem gambling. So the issue is massive. And I learned about a loot box, which I had no idea what it was, but it's some kind of thing that you buy when you're playing video games, and it's connected to video games. And out of 93% of the young people that were playing these games, over 40% of them actually paid money out of their pocket money or got from their parents. So it's a really big issue. And I also learned that most banks can offer a gambling block if a gambling problem is identified. And I just thought that it might be a good idea. I know we're getting our local organisation in, but I thought we could also invite GamCare and the Danske Bank to inform us of the information that they have and the support that is available for young people and for all age groups that they can offer here as well, please.
Okay, you're seconding the noting of the correspondence?
And I'm seconding the noting of the correspondence as well.
Lovely, thanks, Debbie. Okay, John?
Thank you. I'd like to thank Councillor Green and Councillor Coyle there for bringing up GamCare. I'm aware of that group, but I have never had any presentations from them. So I'll second that as well. It seems ridiculous that the amount of money that these groups make, and they're allowed to make up their own rules and say that they might abide to them, when realistically a gambling addict will do anything to gamble, and they should be the ones contributing to this so that they can reduce the risk of other people starting, because it's once you start, then that's when the addiction becomes, nobody knows they're an addict until they've started, and then it slowly creeps in on them. So it's easy for somebody writing it who's not an addict, but he's quite happy to work for a corporation making lots of money. But it's the addicts who know what triggers it and what causes it. And especially within young people, to start at that age, then that's probably a lifetime of suffering and misery that those families are going to go through.
Thanks, John. Josephine?
Thank you, Chair. And really just to support Councillors Green and Coyle in what they've presented to Council tonight. And certainly the statistics that Councillor Coyle gives us really are startling and should be a matter of concern to each and every one of us. Gambling destroys life, and it's amazing to me that companies make vast amounts of money on the back of misery for individuals and families. I have had the privilege of having a presentation from GamCare through our Neighbourhood Renewal Health subgroup, and I can tell you the work they do is very commendable. And I think it would be excellent to hear from them so that we can, as councillors, inform our constituents regarding any help that's out there. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Josephine. Diana?
Chair, thank you. Just to add to the conversation, I attended a GAMCAR presentation along with the Western Trust, and I just wonder, would the proposers be happy to invite the Western Trust that was involved in that for work on the ground that they are doing here and add to the proposal? Thank you.
Okay. Debbie's happy. John? Yeah? Okay, members, you've heard the proposal and seconded. Are we all agreed? Okay, that'll be actioned. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to 14.3.
Yes, Chair, this is from the Electoral Commission. I know we received some similar correspondence in Policy and Resources, but in summary, the Electoral Commission have made a number of suggestions, but specifically, just the second last paragraph of the letter, they're calling on the UK government to create clear legal gateways for government departments and public bodies to share data on potentially eligible voters. So from a council perspective, it's something that we could choose to support even by way of writing. But the Commission would also be pleased to meet the council and discuss proposals for wider reform if that's something in which members would have an interest.
Okay, members. Diana?
Chair, I'm happy to propose we note the letter and the Chief Executive's guidance. You may remember both you and I think remarked on the booths in Newton Ards, and I think that installation of those registration booths would help attract a younger voter in our district. I'm just wondering, was there a response at the time to that?
So, Chair, the council has agreed, I think it was from Policy and Resources, which have now been adopted, that we would invite the new Chief Electoral Officer to meet with the council, and that we would include the issue around the electronic booths as part of the discussion. We didn't receive a substantive response previously on that matter from the outgoing Chief Electoral Officer, so we will now action that following the approval of this evening's minutes. This is from the Electoral Commission, who will have a different role, but probably would defer certainly to the Electoral Office on matters relating to local data collection.
Okay, thank you, Alison.
Okay, just before I bring Debbie in, certainly I have, along with Dan, have been following that one on a continuous basis. And it's just another example of where departments and agencies just don't follow through with information and don't give us any information when we request it. And certainly what the excuse was that it was one chief executive changing over to the next, but neither one of them has given us an answer. And despite the fact that there's a system obviously operating in another council area, so it is the last resort, I suppose, when we have to actually drag a chief executive down here to Fermanagh and Omagh and look for information. I think it's scandalous. I think it is not right, and I don't know what we can do about it, Alison. But I think that, you know, through NILGA or through Solus or some of the organisations, that unless we as local government get a little bit more ability to challenge and to enforce some cooperation and timely response and a proper response, local government has been hampered in its ability to represent its citizens.
Chair, no, certainly. I think it's important, maybe just for accuracy. So, the new chief electoral officer has not yet received any correspondence from this council. That will follow on.
Sure, it was on our table from the last chief executive, with all due respect.
Well, it may or may not have been on his table, Chair, but in any case, we'll be writing to him to invite. Certainly the previous chief electoral officer had advised that she believed she had discussed those matters previously with the council and didn't consider a further correspondence would actually add to the situation. That was her view, but we'll obviously action the request now following the adoption of the minutes.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Debbie?
I was only going to come in and second it.
Okay. And are you noting the second the noting of correspondence? Okay, thanks. Are we all agreed, members? Thank you. Going to move on to 14.4.
Yes, Chair, this is from Sligo County Council, and I think there'd probably just be a couple of councillors, maybe Councillor Rainey, Councillor McElduff, together with myself, who may remember the Oma Sligo partnership, which, as the letter states, really went into abeyance largely because the funding ended and the projects, it didn't have any sustainable strategy. This is a notice of motion that was considered at Sligo County Council, and it's really that we consider the feasibility of reinstigating the partnership. It does note that Fermanagh and Oma District Council has been in existence now since 2015. I think, Chair, if members were minded for this to be explored further, I would certainly wish to go back to Sligo to consider what has maybe changed in the intervening period, given that there really hasn't been very much emerging other than significantly on the Sligo, Enniskillen Greenway, but even in the previous peace programmes or the new Shared Island initiatives, Sligo hasn't necessarily sought the council's involvement and didn't see us as a natural partner. So there may be scope, but I'm just not sure about the extent of information that we would be able to drill out.
Okay. Barry?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's a welcome letter, and you know, I would propose that we do that exploration, that scoping out of the feasibility of returning to such a project. I had an informal conversation at a NILGA AILG meeting in the Guildhall in Derry with a Sligo-based councillor who expressed great enthusiasm for this. Rosaleen O'Grady, she expressed great enthusiasm for this. And I think they see it as having maybe a northern partner for funding applications. You know, I see that as one of their interests in it. But in recent months, I called into the bid office in Sligo, the Business Investment District office in Sligo. And in the same way that Enniskillen within our own council is working the bid system, Sligo are strong advocates of the bid model, you know, which we might be now going to attempt to revive in Oma. So there's a couple of commonalities that already have been expressed, you know, the bid discussions and also funding opportunities if you have a north-south partner. And there was, it's kind of, at the meeting, I didn't raise the subject, it was Rosaleen O'Grady who raised it, and I said that I thought she would find a willing council in us, you know, for to reinstigate that Oma Sligo partnership, and I do indeed remember it well. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Barry, are you willing to note the correspondence? Thank you. Anthony?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll second the correspondence and second Barry's proposal there as well. Yes, I like the idea of this. It'll do no harm any of them cross-border committees work well together and with our other councils and other councils. So I'd be happy with that.
Certainly. Alan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And as the Chief Executive has referred to, I was part of that Oma Sligo partnership previously, and I'm very happy to support this invitation here.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Are we all agreed, members? Okay, that'll be actioned. Thank you. Moving on to 14.5.
Yes, this is just a request for the council really to sign a petition regarding the National Energy Action, just wider concerns regarding fuel poverty. I do note the dates on this correspondence, but it was confirmed that we could submit a letter of support subsequent to this meeting, and the intention would be that that will go to the Prime Minister.
Okay. Patrick?
Yep, thank you, Chair. I suppose my first question was about the date, so thankfully that's been now clarified. And I'll note the correspondence as well there, Chair. So, yeah, the cost of living crisis and energy prices continue to be a concern for many, and they're hitting vulnerable people. So, certainly support signing the letter, and if that can be done. I've also just want to raise a similar issue now in regards to businesses. I've been contacted by one local business in Mid-Tyrone who have highlighted that their energy prices have doubled in recent years, and that's reiterated there in the statistics from the National Energy Action. And that's just not sustainable for small and medium businesses who are the lifeblood of our local economy. and indeed we depend on them, and they're facing immense pressure as a result of the hikes that have taken place in recent years. In the absence of a functioning assembly and with the budget being imposed on us presently by the Secretary of State, I propose we write to him and the Treasury asking that the windfall tax that was introduced last year be used for intervention and targeted measures that support businesses that are facing financial pressures at this time. And I also would propose that the Department for Economy are contacted about that as well, so they can requesting for them to contact the Treasury to ask for similar financial support for the department. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Ms. Patrick, Seamus.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to second Councillor Withers' proposal there. I also want to just comment on this letter that came. I would second us supporting that as well. I think Patrick did propose it. So just in relation to fuel poverty and everything that's going on at the minute, I'm just wondering when people across these islands will waken up. People in Britain are paying the highest for energy across the whole of Europe at a time when Britain is probably almost the biggest, apart from Norway, the biggest producer of oil and gas in the whole of Europe. But yet we're paying the highest, people that's living in Britain is paying the highest bills in the whole of Europe. It's absolutely disgraceful. People are just being taken for idiots time and time again. Oil prices, again, as we come to the close to the winter time, heating oil, diesel, petrol, everything is creeping up. Every time you go past a filling station now, there's another penny or two, or sometimes 5p on the litre. And it's just outrageous. And I don't know what more to say. I don't know if this petition will help or not, but I would be fully in support of it. But people really need to waken up of just how this government is treating the people.
Okay, thanks, Seamus. Did you note second and noting in the correspondence? Yeah. Okay, members, you've heard that proposed and seconded. Are we in agreement? Okay, thank you. Moving on to 14.6.
Yes, Chair. This letter is from the Deputy Secretary within DFI, and it's really in advance of the engagement that DFI will be having with the Council, the normal annual meeting. And it's really, I suppose, setting out the current position within the department, some of the wider strategic consideration issues, and in general, requesting that members maybe temper their expectations on what the meeting will achieve. The date that we have in the diary for the engagement with DFI Road Sherbridge Special Council meeting is Monday, the 27th of November. When I received this, I did respond to Mr. Woods just to say he's indicated it would be helpful to have an officer discussion, that we'd be happy to facilitate that, but I haven't received any further response. So as things stand, Chair, we're working on the basis that that meeting will proceed, that in advance of it we will receive a copy of the annual report. And I do appreciate the financial situation, but I imagine members will certainly wish to proceed and to ensure that this district gets its fair share of funding.
Seamus?
Yeah, I'm just shocked that they're telling us not to have a high expectation. I never have high expectation when we're meeting them. So that'll be a simple one to do. I just want to, it's actually amazing just how this year after year, especially from this Tory government, came in 13, almost 14 years ago, where year on year there's cuts to everything, but we're talking about infrastructure now. They have the place falling down around our ears. They have the hospitals nearly shut. They have the schools falling around our ears. They have everything in bits around us. and it's just continuing and continuing. And I have to say, and I know members in here will be saying that I'm playing politics and that, well, we are all politicians, so that's safe. But remember that there's a party sitting at the far side of the chamber that kept these people in government for 4 years when they could have been got rid of, kept them in government and voted with them all the time to keep them there. And then there's another party, not sitting just at the far side of the chamber, but that got into a kind of a coalition with them. I think they were called the Yukons, and that a very apt name with them. So this is what you get with these Eton educated toffs who only think of the rich and abandon the poor. And every time they're in government, every single time, if you look through history, services is just cut, and it's falling around our ears. And how any party can support these, I don't want to say crooks, but these people in government defies belief. I'll give you an example. We had road service and that out, the safety ones, and met them at Dernawilt, where we were looking for a parking bay where there's a dangerous area there where children are getting off the bus, and it's still nothing has been done since. But the guy that was out told us that 5 years previously he had 700,000 for safety issues in this Fermanagh and Omagh area. 700,000, that's what he had to spend. That year, 3 years ago, he had 70,000. That was what he had to spend. So basically he was telling us nothing was going to be done on it. So then again, we see in this here, there's a 14% cut again. So I am proposing that we write and we ask exactly what over the last 10 years has been cut from the infrastructure budget. What exactly is the figures year on year while parties were supporting these people that were sending this budget over to us? Can we find out them stats? So that's my proposal.
Okay, thanks, Seamus. John?
Yeah, we can all agree that the roads are in a poor state. The only member of my household that might think different is my grandson, and he's barely 6 months. He thinks the bumps are great and put him over to sleep. So it's a great way for that, getting him over. But I can't see anybody else in the household particularly enjoying it. The wear and tear in people's cars and the basic maintenance is resulting in our infrastructure becoming worse. Recently, a road beside me boiled up because the drains were blocked, and it's going to cost them more money. As for a political fight, of course, if we had an MP that went to Westminster and actually took these people on, maybe we might have some different outcomes as well.
Thanks for that contribution, John. And Stephen?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just Seamus made some points and made them very well, and I want to second his proposal there.
Thanks, Stephen. Patrick?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to respond to that comment about going to Westminster. I think everybody knows that nothing's ever been got for the Irish people by going sitting on the green benches of Westminster. In fact, there's been many promises made by people here, and they went to Westminster and achieved nothing. We often get questioned on why we're so interested in the constitutional question. The constitutional question is exactly the reasons why the roads are in the shape they're in. It's because of decisions made by Tories in London who have no interest in this space whatsoever, that our health service, all of our public services are all in dire straits. That's why. And sitting on the back bench of Westminster is not where decisions are made. They're made by the government, the elected government of the day, and the Ulster Unionists were in coalition in supporting the Conservatives a number of years ago, and the DUP had their confidence supply agreement, and we all know how that worked out. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. You've heard the proposal. It's been seconded. Are we all in agreement? Okay, thank you, members. Moving on to 14.7.
Thank you, Chair. Just it's a normal communication now from DFC, just a rollover of the arrangements to allow for council remote hybrid meetings to continue, and this will remain in place until the 24th of March 2024.
Okay, can I have a proposal and second? Josephine and Diana, no to correspondence. Thank you. And 14.8.
Chair, this is just in relation to the live links provision, the laws which have made for the tribunals and live links to courts. So just again for noting.
Okay. Stephen, and seconded Anne-Marie. Okay. Donnelly, that is. Thank you, members. So that concludes our correspondence.
We're into the other.
Other, yeah, yeah. So we're just moving to 14.9 now, and
We have, Chair, dealt with a number of the items of correspondence just in the other folder, but so I'll just go through those that we haven't. The first is from the Department of Health, and I know this was also publicised. It's just confirming the making of the abortion services safe action zones, and they have come into effect, and the details are for enforcement are also attached to the correspondence.
okay. Can I have a proposer and seconder to note? Nolene and Debbie. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I should have said, Chair, we dealt with item 1 in the course of matters arising. So we're on other correspondence, item 3. This is the Digital Economy Act 2017, and the proposal from the Department for Communities is that councils are also included within its provision. You'll see there's a deadline of the 5th of October to advise whether or not the council is content for us to be listed as a public body. Certainly from our perspective, Chair, there'd be no concerns regarding this, and we'd be happy to confirm accordingly to the department.
Okay, can I have a proposer and seconder to note? And Anne-Marie Fitzgerald and Gavin, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the next item in the other folder is one that Councillor McElduff was just referencing a little earlier in the meeting. So it's an update from the DFI in relation to the A5 Western Transport Corridor. It's setting out their indicative timescale, and I think it's quite positive in tone. But you'll see they're expecting a response by the end of December, and then subject to the various orders being made in spring, the indicative construction details are also set out.
Saracen, Patrick.
Thank you, Chair. I'll propose noting the correspondence. I think that's a very positive development that we've had from DFA today. Seems to be a real welcome momentum gathering behind the project. With the public inquiry over there just recently, and I will have this report published by the end of the year. And as it's been stated there, hopefully there'll be construction next year. As we know, the existing roads just not fit for purpose. Many sections are below modern safety standards, and too many families have been left bereaved. So the no dual carriage will also be major benefit to the local economy, and hopefully we'll see progress in this next year, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Glenn.
I'm Ogad Caherly, and I want to second the noting of the correspondence from the Director of Major Projects and Active Travel, Colin Hutchinson, at Department for Infrastructure. And the A5N2 Cross-Border Committee met last on the 21st of September in Monaghan. And once again, members of this council and the other councils involved got an opportunity to hear from a delegation of the Enough is Enough campaign. And as a council, we also have met that campaign group as well. And I want to commend the group for their continued resolve. We know the very powerful message that they bring, and we know how they've played a very important role in the public inquiry and continue to play an important role in the campaign for full delivery of the A5 dual carriageway. And it is a very positive piece of correspondence from the department. I want to welcome it. And whilst it's positive in tone, we do wait the outcome of the PAC, and we trust that it too will be positive and allow the road to finally proceed, and that those who have tried to block the road at every turn, that they no longer take that approach. I want to draw attention to just the second last line of the letter. It says, as we wait for publication of the PAC report, I would encourage you to review your resourcing position to ensure that you'll be able to meet the demands of the anticipated scheme. progression and plan delivery program. I suppose I just ask maybe that our officers would maybe just comment on that, on our readiness as a council to support the planned delivery program, and maybe then I would propose that we do contact the project sponsor, Seamus Keenan, and advise and reassure him of our readiness to be not causing further delay. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, Chair, really in relation to the council's own role, it will be very limited by way of what we would have to do. There may be some, it's a regionally significant scheme, there may be some ancillary planning matters, but certainly we're resourced if that is required. But I don't anticipate there being a significant resource burden, but certainly if Councillor Campbell, within his proposal, I think it would be appropriate for us to write back, confirm that we don't envisage any resource impediments, and obviously welcome the positive tone of the correspondence.
Okay. Stephen?
Thank you, Chair. And I think that this is an incredibly timely piece of correspondence, not least given the context where we did recently have that engagement with Joe Kennedy, where essentially in future our capacity to be able to capitalise on future investment opportunities is going to be very much rooted in our ability to develop our road infrastructure and connectivity going into the future. And I do find it welcome that we do have this optimistic tone, and hopefully we will see progress in due course, but it is important to stress that this cannot be another false dawn. As part of the most recent public inquiry, we've seen families come to the fore to express deeply traumatic stories and reinforcing the rationale for the road safety imperative of this scheme progressing. So welcome the correspondence, happy to second if necessary, but welcome this, and hopefully we'll see progress in future.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. All right.
Councillor Donnelly mentioned the road safety imperative, and that is absolutely key to all of this. And other imperatives include better connectivity, reduction of travel times, and the needs of economic development. I just would call on the PAC to follow the evidence, because the public inquiry was stacked from the floor to the ceiling with evidence in favour of the A5, and it must now be given the green light. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Barry. Stephen, did you second Glenn's proposal to write back? Yeah. Okay, thank you. We all agreed, members? Okay, thank you. That concludes all of the correspondence in the other folder. So now we have two notice of motions, and our first notice of motion is economic and inward investment, and that has been proposed by Councillor David Mahan, seconded by Councillor Shirley Hawkes. David, you have 5 minutes. Shirley, you have 3. And the mic is on.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing this motion to be presented this evening, and I hope members will be able to support it. The motion reads that this council recognises the immediate need to address the lack of economic growth and investment within its district. Council notes that the geographical position of the council, along with the lack of infrastructure investment for decades, has further reduced the district's appeal to attract investment. This is clearly seen from the recent investment summit in Belfast, where 1,000 jobs are to be created over the next 5 years, split between Belfast and the North West. No mention of any proposed new jobs or investment for the West. Council acknowledges and welcomes the recent visit to the district by the US Special Envoy Joe Kennedy III. This is a very positive step, and we hope will only be the beginning of such visits. Council resolves the need to establish a working group, Economic and Inward Investment Working Group, with a clear and direct mission to address this issue. As members will be aware, the Council has faced considerable budget pressures recently, and unfortunately this looks like it will continue for some time. In 2019, the total net Council budget was around 33 million, and now, 4 years later, it is around 43 million. One could say that is a massive increase over just 4 years, £10 million. I firmly believe the issue is that our rates base is too small, and more importantly, it is not growing fast enough to meet the budget demands of the Council. And actually, after the 2023 Northern Ireland revaluation process, the non-domestic rate value has dropped 850,000. So instead of staying still or increasing, it is actually decreasing in some ways. We need more new rate accounts, more development, more offices, more factories, and more tourism destinations. This is by far the best way to generate income to the council without adding additional burdens to the existing ratepayer. It sounds simple, but how can we achieve it? Firstly, let's understand what we have. FODC is a significant element of the Mid-South-West region, which makes up almost half of Northern Ireland's landmass and houses a quarter of Northern Ireland's population. It is home to a third of Northern Ireland's businesses. It provides 214,000 workplace jobs, 90% of which are taken up by local people. It generates 7.7 billion gross value added, representing a fifth of the overall NI economy. Currently, the region is a substantial player in the Northern Ireland-wide economy, but it is not growing fast enough. We have world-renowned business names in sectors such as manufacturing, recycling and technology. FODC ticks so many boxes for our local economy, and it's time we started to shout louder about our successes. Members, I believe this new council working group should be focused on delivery. Northern Ireland is regarded as a prime destination for inward investment, and we must maximise our local strengths to ensure we receive our fair share of this investment. Building on the recent Kennedy visit, there was a significant announcement that he will lead a business delegation to Northern Ireland in October this year. He must make sure that their itinerary doesn't just stop at Ballygawley and includes visits to Fermanagh to see what we have to offer. We need to do more. This year, I had an opportunity to attend MIPIM in France. MIPIM is a premier real estate and investment summit which gathers the most influential players from all sectors of international property and investment industry. All regions of the UK had exhibits. For Northern Ireland, it did have an exhibit, but it was a Belfast City Deal exhibit. No mention at all of the West. This is just one example of how we are not attracting investment and development to our area. And many more examples are out there, missed opportunities. So members, there is a massive amount of work to be done. I and my colleagues, as I'm sure you are up for the challenge. This working group must think big, aim big, and work to deliver big. We need big investment for infrastructure, big investment in new and existing tourism facilities, and new small and big businesses to grow or set up here. If we can all work together, I believe we can turn the ship around and get Fermanagh and Omagh District Council back firmly on the map. Thank you, members, for listening, and I hope that you'll be able to support this motion this evening. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, David. Shirley, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I am happy to second this motion. The lack of economic growth and investment within the West has resulted in devastating consequences for our young people. The lack of employment opportunities and high-powered job creation has driven our youth away from their homeland to seek better paid and highly skilled jobs, causing a vacuum in this council area of Northern Ireland. Today, we are reaping the consequences of decades of a lack of investment, resulting in a brain drain, where we are losing some of the most talented people within Northern Ireland who have to move away to find employment. The stark reality is the East-West divide that we have had to endure for many years. No one can argue that the majority of investment which comes into Northern Ireland remain in the East and North-West, with the West and this council area being left as an almost forgotten entity. However, this area has much to offer investors, and I want to commend all our small and medium-sized entrepreneurs who have remained within the Western area and continue to grow. We must endeavour to help and support them as well as lobbying for greater investment into this area. Surely NI has a crucial role to play in sourcing a greater level of investment into the West, and perhaps it is time they stepped up to the mark alongside the Council in the hosting of many more investment conferences in this area and encouraging investors to invest into this area. I believe Invest NI needs a complete change of focus if we are to see the much needed level of investment into our area, where we will be able to provide investment and job opportunities on a par, not only with the rest of NI, but with the rest of the UK. Therefore, I am happy to second the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Shirley. Have we any other speakers? Okay, all right.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, as you know, you gave it due consideration. I forwarded an amendment to yourself for your consideration, and thank you for accepting it. But again, this is not a spat between anybody in the chamber at all.
Just Barry, if you just give me a wee moment here.
Yeah.
First of all, I just want to see, is there any other speakers on the motion
Okay.
before? So I'm going to take the other speakers on the motion, then I'll take your, okay, it was just nobody else was indicating and you were the only one indicating. Gavin?
Okay, thank you, Chair. And firstly, I want to thank Councillor Mahan and Councillor Hawkes for bringing this motion before Council this evening. It is indeed very welcome from the DUP at this time, given that we have the political impasse here in the north from the Assembly election last May 22, that is. It is good also that they are recognising the total lack of investment in the Fermanagh area and the West in general. But we can all agree that this didn't happen recently. Historically, successive administrations have done what could only be described as total discrimination against this area. When it comes to investment, economic investment, we don't even get the crumbs of the table. Invest NI are part of this and also have to up their game when it comes to investment in our district area. I totally agree with the first statement in the motion. We do need to address the lack of economic growth and investment within our district. And I note the words of Congressman Kennedy when he said his role as the Special Envoy for Economic Affairs here was to tell the story of all of Northern Ireland, not just Belfast. In his words again, he said the rest of this place has a good story to tell to intended investors. The President of the United States has sent him here on a mission, and we here in the West should be doing all we can to capitalise on these opportunities. For too long, we have lost out on opportunities, but the situation at present does not, in many ways, instill confidence in any intended investors with the way in which we cannot get together and sort out the most basic of problems. So we need to see change from the party that has brought this motion before us tonight, indeed all the parties, to our political situation here in the north. Our politics is a laughingstock for those looking in from other parts of the world. Let's start to see some grown-up politics that addresses the ordinary man and woman on the street, their daily needs alongside much-needed investment in our area. As the motion acknowledges, the visit from Congressman Kennedy is very welcome, but let's hope it's the first of many and it is followed by visits from investors. And it is my great hope that our council, in conjunction with other like-minded individuals and organisations, gets together to put our best foot forward and claim our rightful share of investment for our region. And we, the SDLP, will be supporting the motion, and we also would be supporting the amendment also, just to make that note.
Okay,
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Gavin. Stephen?
Thank you, Chair. And as the motion alludes to, I think that the recent visit by Joe Kennedy did create the opportunity to put this district on the map in terms of highlighting the opportunities that are available to us in terms of inward investment, creating opportunities, making sure that young people actually have the capacity to be able to stay here and make their contribution. But alongside that, there are substantial challenges that we have to get to grips with in terms of the infrastructure piece, in terms of the many challenges that we face in our road network, in terms of that wider transport piece, and making sure that we have public transport that adequately serves the needs of our people, in terms of making sure that we have a focus on improving our skill base with the strong base that we have in terms of our schools and our further education colleges that we have here in the district. And whilst I do welcome the possibility that can be created from the establishment of this working group and the focus that that will bring to bear in terms of, I guess, future lobbying efforts, we do need to acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is that fundamentally the vast thrust of these problems are going to have to be resolved by a re-established executive, because fundamentally, whilst we can play a representative role in raising those concerns and pushing for the interests of our people, if we do not have a united leadership at Stormont trying to stand up for the interests of our people, then ultimately this is going to go to waste, and the opportunities that we want to see brought to this district are not going to materialise. And we have to be realistic about the fact that a big part of the reason why so many young people feel disillusioned with Northern Ireland and make the decision to move away from here, to live their lives and build their lives elsewhere,
is because of the utter despair that comes from the fact that there is a lack of stability. And so whilst I'm more than happy to support the motion, and indeed Alliance will also be supporting the amendment brought forward, ultimately we have to be realistic about the fact that if we are going to see progress in terms of the prosperity agenda, then that has to start with a reformed devolution prospectus. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. I have no other speakers indicating to speak on the motion, so I'm going to invite Barry to propose his amendment, and that was seconded by Seamus. That was circulated to members via WebEx so that you will all have had that. So I'm going to ask Barry to propose his amendment.
I also want to thank proposer and seconder Councillor Mahan and Councillor Hawkes for identifying the need to establish a working group for economic and inward investment. And the amendment that has been accepted supports this call, sets out to retain as much of the spirit of the original motion, but seeks to add value as well. There's a reference to lack of infrastructural investment, A5 being one example, digital, absence of advanced sites for investment in parts of our district, including Oma. Of course, there's the issue of political will down the years, but I'll not go there in my short 3 minutes of this contribution. The motion refers to the recent investment conference and no specific mention of our council area, our district. We did have the Joe Kennedy visit, and that was very, very welcome. And again, thanks to the chair for hosting the breakfast where local businesses were able to engage directly with the US envoy for economic affairs. And we are encouraging follow-up visits. We probably need a document ourselves to sell to potential investors, including Joe Kennedy, a comprehensive document detailing our sectoral strengths. And they include, of course, tourism, agri-food, engineering, advanced manufacturing, construction, and other. And earlier in the meeting, the Chief Executive reminded us of the strong local companies who did present to breakout group meetings at the recent conference. We should also note that Madam Zhang, the Chinese consul based in Belfast, is also seeking to engage with us ongoingly about economic opportunities that might present as well. And we should remind ourselves that in 2018, this council signed a partnership agreement with Guangxi in China. So is there potential there would be another question. The amendment refers to the Mid-Southwest Economic Growth Deal and the Shared Island, various structures where we're trying to work up a stronger economic value proposition as well. And also, I make reference in the amendment to the Greater Northwest. If you're looking at the island of Ireland from the United States or from China or somewhere else, you look at the top left-hand corner, the Greater Northwest, and the deficit of economic investment. So new and old links. We need to establish new links, consolidate old links, and I think we can address most of these issues in this working group. So that's the amendment as presented. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Barry. Seamus?
Thank you, and I would like to second the amendment. I'm minded to burst into song here at this stage, but for everyone's eardrums, I'll not. But the song in mind that I'm thinking of is John Lennon's Imagine. Imagine if we had had a Minister of the Economy from this area, the good they could have done, the investment they could have brought in. Imagine if we had had the First Minister from this area. Just imagine the amount of investment and good that could have been done for this area. Just imagine. But I know that's all fantasy, so that's never going to happen. So we'll move on. We have a rural affairs working group who is gathering together statistics so that we can present to Stormont and I know that's a slightly different thing, but we're working on presenting a paper to Stormont showing the lack of investment, the lack of investment in infrastructure, in health, and all of the things that we complain about, transport, and that's a work in progress. So hopefully both groups won't overlap on that we'll be able to define which groups do and which. So I'm happy to second the amendment, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thanks, Seamus. Josephine?
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank Councillor Mahan and Councillor Hawkes for bringing forward this motion, which I wholeheartedly support. I also support the amendment as proposed by Councillor Barry McElduff and seconded by Councillor Green. I think the amendment adds value to this motion, and I think it is fitting that we as a council should acknowledge the efforts of the Mid-Southwest Economic Growth Deal and also the shared island structures to promote economic growth in our area. Chair, I think one of the most important functions of this council is to promote economic growth and development, and that is the bedrock on which our community thrives. Councillor Hawkes is quite right when she says about our young people going abroad to find the well-paid and rewarding jobs that they require to lead happy and fulfilled lives. And it is a tragedy of this island that we have had this brain drain. Often in this chamber, we have reflected on why we cannot attract, for example, healthcare professionals to our beautiful council area. And I think at the end of the day, it all boils down to the opportunities for well-paid jobs and employment. And that's why it is fitting that this council should do everything within its power to promote economic development. I think it was a great coup, Chair, to get the special envoy, Joe Kennedy III, to come to our council area and to take an interest in what is going on in our council area. And I think the publicity surrounding that will help our case. But I do think it's an excellent idea to establish a working group to focus in on economic development and inward investment so that we as a council can ensure that we are doing everything within our power to attract those jobs, to attract that investment, and to provide for our young people and families in this area. So I do support the motion, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Josephine. John?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Councillor Mahan and Councillor Hawkes for bringing forward the motion, and Councillor McElduff and Councillor Green for adding a little bit more to it by the form of their amendment. I think this is something that we all recognise in this area. We've been underinvested for many years, and we've seen the young people moving away due to the lack of the more high-powered jobs. There's a vast amount of small micro industries out there, and we have a lot of people who are employed in those, but unfortunately, for what we're planning for this council, we do have to create more revenue. And as Councillor Mahan points out, we do need some of the larger industries to provide a better spread of employment. It's good to see that we're all agreeing on it because it's something that we've all recognised. So I'm happy to go with the motion.
Thanks, John. Diana?
Chair, thank you. And I would like to thank the proposers and seconders of both motions. On the point of China, as Councillor Green has mentioned, I was speaking today to someone who told me that there's an engineering company within the district that is out training in China, training in their processes. So we sometimes forget about the value of what is happening in our district. I think that's something that really needs to be looked at and to grow that expertise. Just my colleague touched on the micro businesses, micro sector in our district. that's an area where I think that we really need to do drill down and give more confidence to those small business owners, because those are businesses that can grow with investment and with direction, with mentorship. So I think I certainly would support both motions, and I think, you know, a working group looking at that specifically would be one of the aims that I would support, apart from the other work. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Diana. Okay, I'm not seeing any other speakers on the amendment. Just to say on my own behalf, certainly recognizing the need for us to be able to capitalize on the visit of Joe Kennedy and be able to find ways to attract inward investment. And certainly if we had something produced that we can bring around or send around, produced on social media, or something that can work with businesses. Of course, recognizing that a big proportion of our businesses here are tourism businesses and businesses that are Indigenous by their very nature in our area, and as Diana says, have the potential to grow given the right circumstances and the right opportunity for investment. We have such a high startup of small businesses, but then it is about sustaining those small businesses to grow and be able to employ 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the future. And that, with all of the efforts that this council and other agencies put in, is still a hard task to sustain them moving forward. But certainly there is an opportunity to, on the back of all of the recent events, to build on that, and I think this motion and amendment adds to it. So I'm going to, as there's no other speakers, I'm going to put the amendment to the floor first of all. So I'm just looking for, are we all in agreement to the amendment? Okay, not showing any, so that becomes the substantive motion now. So are we have that's right. David?
Thank you, Chair. And I take it that amendment passed there. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, all agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for the broad support of the motion and indeed the amendment this evening. It's great to see so many people engaging on it and putting their back behind it. It is indeed going to be a big piece of work. We're going to have to reach the new limits. And yes, I know there was, and I knew it was going to come up, of course, the mention of Stormont or the lack of it. And I was expecting that. And yes, uncertainty, it does not help businesses come into any area. But then you could look at the 1,000 jobs that was proposed there at the Investment Summit. You know, so it's not holding up everything. There is opportunities out there and we need to go after them. Hopefully the executive and Stormont will be up and running as soon as possible. That's certainly what we'd like to see. So I'd just like to thank everybody for supporting the motion and hope we can all work together. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. Okay, so David has summed up now. So the we are voting on the amendment as the substantive motion. So are we all in favour? Okay, we're all in favour, so that's passed. Thank you all for that. And we're going to move on to our second motion, and that's proposed by Debbie Coyle and seconded by Nolene Hayes, and that's the menopause motion. And Debbie, you have 5 minutes, and then seconded by Nolene for 3 minutes. So the clock is ticking.
Thanks, Chair. I'm sure everybody's read the motion, so I don't feel the need to really read it out. But I would just like to say that World Menopause Day was established in 1984 by the World Health Organization and the International Menopause Society with the intention of spreading awareness about this condition that affects women as they get older. The condition has not really been studied as much as it should have been and is often not discussed openly. And therefore, having a World Menopause Day can encourage conversation and help develop more more with research on the menopause and its effects. The theme for World Menopause Day 2023 is cardiovascular disease. Researchers have recently discovered that a woman's reproductive experiences throughout her life, including menstruation, pregnancy, any breast cancer treatments, and the menopause, can affect her chances of developing cardiovascular disease later in life. Awareness of this can help to determine your individual risk. The impact of menstruation and the impact of pregnancy complications can also affect the risk of cardiovascular disease. Many of its symptoms led to a diagnosis of angina, and if left unchecked, as we know, this can cause a heart attack and strokes and other effects. Whilst the menopause is experienced by many women, it affects us all differently at different stages and can last for different lengths of time. Whilst the average age of women is in the early 50s, many women experience symptoms in the years leading up to their final period, and the menopausal symptoms can go on for many years after. Menopause symptoms vary, with around 25% of women suffering severe symptoms. So it's no surprise then that women go through the menopause, who are going through the menopause can often find work difficult due to poor concentration, tiredness, poor memory, depression, feeling low, reducing their confidence, and experiences such as hot flushes. It can also affect attendance at work and also performance at work. And one of the things that I would like to see maybe in the council buildings is maybe some more information available to our women workers in council and indeed women councillors. The menopause is natural, it is not an illness, but it can often come with cruel symptoms as I've already described. In one study of the menopause, 10% of women considered giving up work or taking early retirement. However, this is a very difficult decision for so many women due to pension cuts and increased living costs. The menopause can often steal away a woman's confidence and her ambitions. And I'm asking all councillors please to support this motion.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. And Nolene?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I am seconding Councillor Coyle's motion, and before I expand a couple of more awareness points, may I request that the council buildings be illuminated on the 18th of October, which is World Menopause Day. I would suggest colour red, but that colour can be determined at a later date. As I said, a couple of more points of awareness on that theme of the menopause, which is cardiovascular disease. The menopause can cause a drop in estrogen levels, and this can lead to a heightened risk of developing cardiovascular disease. Unless there's a good reason not to, the use of menopausal hormone therapy or HRT, particularly for women with premature or early menopause, is recommended to reduce the risk of heart disease. While breast cancer is often believed to be the #1 cause of death and disability in women, in reality, it is cardiovascular disease. Number of cases of this disease is high and continuing to rise. But by understanding more about the causes and impacts, you can take steps to reduce your risk. Obviously, positive lifestyle choices like not smoking, healthy eating, trying to maintain a healthy weight, regular physical activity and getting enough sleep are a few of them. Common symptoms of the menopause will include hot flashes, night sweats, mood changes and sleep disturbances. All of these symptoms can result in an increase in anxiety and depression. After menopause, women are more at risk of then developing conditions like heart disease and osteoporosis. Most treatments for menopause will only focus on the symptomatic relief, as it is a normal part of aging and as such is not a curable condition. I haven't seen our own council's policy on menopause, but I would like to say, as my role as diversity ambassador, I would like to see that it would also recognise that menopause also affects some trans men and non-binary people, and that menopause-related policies need to be fully inclusive of all those affected. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nolene. Josephine?
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank and commend Councillors Coyle and Hayes for bringing forward this motion this evening, Chair. I think what this motion does is highlight the menopause. It is a natural event in a woman's life, but being natural doesn't make it uncomplicated or without serious adverse effects on a woman's physical and psychological health. It is fitting that we should highlight the World Menopause Day on the 18th of October. I support Councillor Hayes' call for illuminating our public buildings appropriately. I think previously society tended to shy away from the reality of physiological changes in a woman's body, like menstruation and menopause. And the menopause previously, euphemistically, was referred to as the change. And it is now recognised that that change can be extremely difficult for a significant proportion of women in our community. And this council, Fermanagh and Omagh District Council, has been extremely supportive to the difficulties being faced by menopausal women who constitute a significant proportion of our staff. And it is right that we should support staff at this challenging time in their lives. It's interesting, Chair, that earlier in this meeting we had a discussion regarding the reduction in GP elective services, and in particular women's health services being provided in Lisnaskea. GP elective services provide targeted advice to women, assessment and advice to women in the provision of hormone replacement therapy, a very valuable service. And GPs also offer that service, but many GPs do not feel that they have the necessary skills to advise women, particularly women who have coexisting health-related issues. So this is important. It affects the lives of many of our constituents. In our community plan, this council is committed to promoting the health and well-being of our constituents and certainly highlighting the menopause, and helping those women will play a significant part in that. So I support the motion, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Anne-Marie?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and I'd like to thank Debbie and Nolene for bringing this motion forward. It is a taboo subject for many, many years and generations. It is a silent sufferer, and whilst it's perceived that it's an elderly woman's disease, sadly it's not. There is an increasing number of younger women who is becoming menopausal very early on, and perimenopause can come to women in their early 30s. But sadly, the symptoms aren't spoken about much. They're often laughed at or mocked. Women try to make light of them due to the difficulties, but the symptoms are horrific, they are long, and they can be a great burden, not only to the woman, but to also family life. Sadly, women also experience great difficulty in some areas of seeing a GP. We've seen for a long time GPs is very hard to get hold of in some areas, and therefore this causing even more anxiety and suffering for the woman experience, because they can't get to see one for their HRT treatment. I know Nolene made a proposal earlier on, so I'd like to second that proposal in getting the buildings lit up on the 18th. I think the more often that we talk about this and highlight this is very important. The length of illnesses and psychological poor health has been discussed, but you know, it's just awful that sadly depression and high anxiety is one of the bad traits that follow possibly even more so than than hot flushes. Often hear women on about anxiety. They get great fear of leaving the house and they just become very, very anxious. Physical changes are something also, and probably which are more people can see more of a woman, and which is the hair loss and the skin changes with the very dry skin, and there's something that people just highlight more. But it's just the overall feeling of not being well, overall function, and being able to cope and to manage. And I would like to thank my colleagues for bringing forward this motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Colette?
Yes, I would just like to welcome the motion as well. And just to say that I think that we should observe World Menopause Day. It still is a taboo subject, but I think when we are a community of health and well-being and mental awareness, that this should definitely be recognised by all of us. Menopause lasts a very long time, with perimenopause starting up to, as Anne-Marie says, maybe late 20s, early 30s. So this can go on for a woman's lifetime. It's very discomfortable, and I'd just like to welcome the proposal and thank my colleagues for bringing it forward.
Okay, thanks, Colette. Eddie?
Thanks, Chair. The Alliance Party also welcome the motion and thank Councillors Coyle and Hayes for bringing it forward. Menopause, as has been said, has been a taboo subject for many, many years. I believe it is changing and it's becoming more commonplace to discuss it in the workplace. And I've found that some workplaces have been quite good at trying to facilitate a healthier working environment for their colleagues, but that can always be improved. Coming from the clinical side of things, you know, we have Devlin McCall to thank over the past about 2 years or so for really highlighting the treatments that are available for women who are currently undergoing menopause, and HRT treatment has skyrocketed to a point where, as I'm sure many people who use it are finding that the supply levels are very low. Patches and things have trebled in their supply, and yet still we're struggling to keep up demand. So the number of people with the menopause hasn't really changed in the past 5 or 10 years. It's just that more and more people are actually starting to access treatment and feel more comfortable with accessing treatment. And I would encourage anyone in the same boat to please do so. Your GP, as Councillor Deehan has said, is there to discuss it, and it can be very beneficial for the quality of life of very, very many women across this country. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Eddie. Diana?
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I would like to thank Councillor Coyle and Councillor Hayes for bringing forward this motion to raise awareness of the issues around menopause and the impact it has on women. And I support any efforts that are made to remove the stigma around this topic, particularly in the workplace. It has been very moving to hear the testimonies or the responses given by the contributors. And I thank also the expertise, the clinical expertise of Councillor Deehan, Councillor Anne-Marie Fitzgerald and Councillor Roof. Health is a devolved matter for the Northern Ireland Assembly, and I understand a recent Menopause in the Workplace report had been written last year by the Women and Equalities Committee in Westminster, and it has been responded to by the UK government, and those findings will be shared with health ministers in each jurisdiction of the UK. Therefore, you know, that will be good to have that once our devolved government is re-established in Northern Ireland, and I hope that is something that we can all move to pretty speedily. Just on a few points there. Yes, Councillor Hayes mentioned bone density, osteoporosis. That is another side effect of menopause in later life. And women very often, maybe in their 50s onwards, experiencing menopause, also are coping with elder care in very many circumstances in our district. But I do think women aged within their 50s, many women during menopausal years, they do add diversity to the workplace. I think it's important that their comfort and understanding is taken of their needs in the workplace, as they are a very, very valuable resource. I would encourage all elected representatives to open up a dialogue on menopause. I'm sure colleagues here have learned quite a lot this evening by listening to this debate, and I'd encourage all workplaces to also have a menopause policy. And so therefore happy to propose the motion and thank the members for bringing it forward.
Okay, thanks, Diana. Adam?
Thank you, Chair. And firstly, I want to acknowledge that as a man, I'll never truly understand the symptoms that have been described by so many of the councillors here today. Sometimes and quite often with anything, you have to feel it to truly understand it. But there are many women in my life who have experienced menopause or who will experience menopause. And I know that they and any and every person who will experience menopause will be very grateful that this is being discussed here and being highlighted here. And just to acknowledge why I stressed the word person was Councillor Hayes' comments around inclusivity that we need to be so aware of. And as has been mentioned, for kind of a long time, women's health issues have kind of been maybe belittled, swept under the carpet, not taken seriously, which is another reason why it's good that the two councillors have brought this motion here tonight to give it the prominence that it deserves. At the end of the day, menopause it's a part of life for so many, and it's a normal part of life for so many. And even though the experiences may widely differ, as has been described, it needs to be acknowledged. And I think, again, us having this conversation here is a good way to remove the taboo-ness of the topic. The word taboo has been used before. It shouldn't be, as I've said, it's a normal part of life that should be discussed and acknowledged, and everyone should have a knowledge of for their own good, and to be able to be considerate of their colleagues, family, or anyone that may be experiencing a particularly difficult time. And of course, just to say that the SDLP will be supporting this motion, and thank you to the two councillors for bringing it forward. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Shirley?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Coyle and Councillor Hayes for bringing this motion here tonight. The councillors prior to me have covered absolutely everything that anyone would like to say, so I won't say anything more on the matter other than to say that here in the DUP group, and we fully support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Shirley. Okay, I don't have any other speakers, so what I propose to do, I'm going to note the fact that Nolene proposed to light up the buildings, and that was seconded by Josephine. We'll take that under any other business just to separate it from the motion, but it is noted, and I will come back to you on that one. So I'm just going to go to Debbie and allow Debbie to have our summation.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to thank everybody that has come in and supported. It's great to see all parties support for something that does affect over 50% of our population. And I'm encouraged by some of the men that came in and spoke, and thank you. And hopefully next time the subject comes up, some of the others will feel a bit more comfortable about talking about it as well, because, you know, we are all affected by it in one way or another. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. So that's our proposal, and it is on the floor now. Are we all in agreement? Okay, thank you, members. That's passed. So that's been two very important motions here tonight. Being passed is going to be of a benefit, hopefully, going forward to many of our citizens. Okay. Yeah, okay. So we're moving on to any urgent and relevant business, and I'm going to just, as it's coming directly after the motion, I'm going to take Nolene's in just on the lighting up. So Nolene, if you want to, yeah, if you're happy enough that we're just going to take it as proposed,
yes,
for the lighting up on the 18th, and
yes,
proposed by yourself,
yes,
and
please,
seconded by Josephine.
thank
Are
you.
we all agreed, members? Okay, that's that done. So I'm going to bring Stephen in now.
Thank you, Chair, and it's just in relation to Fintona Medical Centre. Last week, Friday, the 29th of September, the Strategic Planning and Performance Group, the SPPG, notified patients of the Fintona Medical Centre or the Fintona Group practice that the practice has handed back their contract to deliver medical GP services. So the SPPG now will manage GP services up until the 31st of March next year, which is just under 6 months away, Chair. Obviously, this has created some concern among the patients of the practice, and whilst I welcome that the contract for provision of GP services will be advertised immediately, a degree of uncertainty now exists for the patients of the area. This also highlights to us the extent of the GP crisis that exists across the north. Fintona is the latest practice to hand back their contract within the Fermanagh district, following on from Trillick and Demore, Brookborough, Tempo and Lisnaskea, with others under significant pressure. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that we are now in an emergency situation in terms of the provision of GP services. I propose, Chair, that we write to the SPPG outlining our concern that yet another GP practice has handed back their contract in this area, to ask them what additional supports they are providing to the practice in the immediate term, and to seek assurances from them that they will have resources in place to ensure the continuation of services post-March 24 if a provider isn't found by that time. And secondly, Chairman, I'd also like to propose that we write to the Permanent Secretary of the Department of Health, Mr. Peter May, outlining our grave concerns about the future of the provision of GP services in our district, and to ask him to provide an update on the measures and initiatives that the Department of Health have undertaken to attract GPs to this region. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Josephine?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and I want to thank Councillor McCann for bringing this alarming development to the attention of Council this evening. Chair, Councillor McCann is quite correct in what he says. This development, Fintona Medical Practice returning its contract, does serve to highlight the extent of the current crisis in primary care services, those services provided by GPs. And Chair, you will know that in this mandate and in the previous mandate, this council did everything that we could to promote and encourage initiatives that would support the development of primary care, including the provision of the multidisciplinary teams, which have not yet materialised. And we have heard this evening about the contraction of the GP elected services, even women's health services, which support women through the menopause. Those services have been cut. Vasectomy services, as I highlighted previously, they have been abolished. And it is the patient who suffers. And in my view, primary care is the bedrock of all care. And I cannot comprehend how the Department of Health that they can allow this situation to continue. The correspondence that we received earlier today just blames budgetary pressures, but can they not see that unless GP services get a huge injection of resources, that they simply will not survive? So whilst I support the efforts of SPPG to get a new contract holder and their efforts in continuing to provide support for the patients of Fintona Medical Practice, it will simply add to the worry and consternation of all people out there where access to GP services is severely challenged, and GPs themselves are also severely under pressure and under-resourced. So this is something that needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency before we have a complete collapse of GP practices in our area. So I want to support Councillor McCann's proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Are you seconding it, Josephine? You are indeed. Okay, we've heard the proposal. It's been seconded. Are we all in agreement? And we get those two letters sorted out. Okay, thank you. Diana?
Thank you, Chair. Just this is a request on behalf of Ballymallard Community Hub. They're seeking council support for a funding application they are submitting to the Community Ownership Fund, which is part of the government's Levelling Up Fund. And they have a project in the village to develop a property, a derelict property, into offices for rent, a coffee shop, meeting rooms, and a community room. They have a funding package in place, but this is the final 200,000 that they need, which they're seeking from this fund. And should members agree, this would require a letter from the Chief Executive, Alison, stating support for the application on behalf of the Council. So I'd like to ask members' agreement to support a letter in that regard. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. John?
Yeah, happy to second that proposal.
Okay, members, you've heard the proposal being seconded. Are we all in agreement? Okay, thank you. Adam?
Thank you, Chair, and I know I have a few items here, so I'll try and be as quick as I can, but some will need a slight amount of background. The first issue is around palliative care services at the Southwest Acute Hospital. Members of staff have contacted myself to express their concern over the future of the service. Essentially, they received a letter from Donal Henderson, the Chief Executive of Foyle Hospice, and Donna Keenan, the Interim Director of Nursing and the Director of Primary Care and Older People's Services, regarding Foyle Hospice taking over palliative care services. Now, the staff came to me to express concern despite this takeover of the services. They felt that it doesn't actually maintain the service or with potential retirements. Now, the most recent corporate risk register, and this was reported in local press, this bit here, gave an early alert previously about the state of palliative care services, saying that there's potential for the on-call rota to become unsustainable due to medical retirements or reduced hours requests. And this was the same early warning and pretty much the exact same wording as what came before the emergency general surgery. So it was obviously months ahead of that, but it's the exact same pattern so far. And I remember at the time when that was first brought out, the trust said, no, it's all fine, but turned out not to be. And the trust on this occasion have released a statement saying, though it's all fine, actually it's not a risk anymore. Without giving the detail on why it's not a risk, which is another reason why staff are concerned. They've only said that the consultant telephone advice line is currently being provided by an external provider rather than talking about how they're going to replace retirements, for example. So what I want us to do, Chair, and I'm going to propose that we write to the Trust and to Foyle Hospice to invite them to present how the service was structured previously and how it will be structured now under the guidance of or under the auspice of Foyle Hospice, so we can get it clear in our mind as councillors and representatives and the community can hear it, what changes there have been, how it has got off the risk register, how the staffing levels have changed, etc. And I would suggest they present that in the next Health and Social Care Subcommittee meeting, Chair, but that would be my proposal at this stage. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to bring Alison in, just Adam, at this point.
It's just to say, Chair, my understanding from the last council meeting was we had requested, now perhaps not with the same detail as Councillor Gannon has set out, and there was discussion at the most recent Health and Services Social Care Subcommittee on this very issue. And the Trust did advise that they, I think, could provide some further written information. So we couldn't undertake the same course of action again as we've already done so just last month.
I'd be asking for a detailed presentation on the before and after. So it's a slightly different course of action. Be asking them to present detailed, if that makes sense, Chair.
I think, Chair, it's certainly within the scope of we could certainly see if any further detail can be provided, but it's certainly within the scope of the proposal agreed less than a month ago.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I appreciate you have some more points there, Adam, so I'm going to come back to you, but I'm just going to let Josephine in on this.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and I want to thank Councillor Gannon for bringing the concerns of staff to the council. I want to pay tribute to the palliative care staff at the South West Acute Hospital and at the Omagh Hospital, and also to the community palliative care teams who provide such excellent services within our community. I think it would be unimaginable, Chair, if there would be any reduction in that level of service. I am aware of a recent retirement of a senior member of staff, but I haven't any
Josephine,
information.
just to say, I'm not opening this up to a long sort of thing. It is any other business, so it's not a, you know, so a quick comment is.
Okay, well, in that case, Chair, and thank you, I just want to support Councillor Gannon's proposal that we seek further clarification in view of the concerns raised by palliative care staff. Thank you.
That's okay. So Adam, that was brought up at the last meeting, and we can just look to augment that. Yes. Okay, you have another couple?
Yes, and apologies for going on, but we've got another point. A concern was raised with myself at the weekend after a local family had to postpone the funeral of their recently passed family member, and that was Johnny McManus of Devlin. And the reason for this postponement has been said that the South West Acute Hospital management could not find a doctor to sign the death certificate to have the remains released, and this was at short notice. The funeral had to be delayed just the day before. So I'm aware also that this has happened to others in the past, but has not been covered in local press or highlighted in the same way this particular issue has, and I'm glad the family has highlighted it. But look, it's a stressful, difficult time for any grieving family, and the fact this has happened on multiple occasions would raise a question with myself and everyone, and it's very worrying. So I would like to propose that we write to the trust to ask them to investigate why this has happened in this case and how it may have happened in previous cases. Are there gaps in their rotas that could potentially allow for this to happen? Because as we all know, unfortunately, family members passing away can happen anytime, and to not have someone there to release them for the funeral is staggering. And what steps are they going to take to prevent this from happening again? So that we just write to them and that they can relay that information to us, and perhaps it may be worthwhile to put it on the agenda of the next Health and Social Care Subcommittee also, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. And your last point?
And yes, my last point's on a totally different issue, and that is regarding the bus for the Ulster bus to
You
Monet.
need to be quick on this one, Adam.
Super quick. So I do want to give this a wee bit of time because this issue was raised to me by 12, 13, 14-year-old students. Okay, and I wanted to give them the opportunity to hear their concerns. I think it's very important when young people reach out.
We're going to have to hold it at that. You're over your 2 minutes, so I got to be fair on everybody here, you know.
But Chair, I wasn't aware that it had for the 3 items only
You're
that
over
time.
3, Adam. Yep. Okay. Debbie?
Thanks, Chair. I'm just going to second the concern around people that have passed away and the bodies being moved, I think, to Belfast. And I was told during the week that actually families are bearing the brunt of the cost of that. And so if that could be put into the letter also to see how factual that is, because I'm sure the general public are not aware of that. So if we can make a note, add that into the letter if Adam's happy enough.
Okay, I'm going to take Stephen in just here then.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And if I'm understanding this correctly, so if a doctor at the hospital can't sign your death certificate, you have to go to Belfast for a post-mortem. Is that what I'm guessing? And further to that, Chair, and it kind of goes back into the GP issue, you know, normally, obviously, if you pass away at home and your GP is aware of your condition and has been in contact with you, he would come out and sign off on your death, and the funeral can then go ahead. However, in areas where there's no GP now and you've got locums coming and going, you know, maybe a GP on duty that day mightn't have been involved in your care, and you may have been obviously seeing the practice. So that also is going to result in the issue that's been raised by Councillor Gannon. And obviously it adds to stress to the family, plus obviously cost in terms of funeral directors as well. So it's just an issue that could be developing for us, Chair.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Keith?
Chair, if you just give me a minute on this, with regard to, there is ongoing issues with getting medical certificates of cause of death signed in the Southwest. But any direction from any of the trade bodies in the funeral industry states you do not organise a funeral until you have the medical certificate in your hand. So with regard to what happened at the weekend, that could have been avoided. And I don't like talking against somebody else. With regard to the Belfast issue, should a person that passes away at home be brought a query post-mortem, let's say, and is brought to Belfast in the interim, and a post-mortem doesn't take place, then that body will be brought back to Enniskillen at the expense of the family. That's the way it is. Thank you.
Okay. We've got all that.
As much as we can, Chair.
Yeah, okay, we will deal with all that, and we will try and get some answers on that. And it's obviously something that we need to try and get to the bottom of. Okay, thank you, members. There, can I have a proposer and seconder to go into confidential? Paul and Robert, thank you. Okay, and I'll ask Alison just to give us a summation.
Thank you, Chair. While in confidential business, the Council confirmed and signed the confidential minutes of the Council meeting held on the 5th of September. There were no matters, a matter arising on a legal matter was provided, and considered the confidential report of the Environmental Services Committee of the 6th of September. There were no matters arising. Confidential report of the Regeneration and Community Committee meeting held on the 12th of September. And the matter arising was raised in relation to a review of current application processes. And finally, the confidential report of the Policy and Resources Committee meeting held on the 13th of September, and clarification was provided on details relating to a forthcoming report.
Okay, can we propose it, Josephine, Diana? Okay, members, that concludes our meeting. Thank you all very much, and thank you for your attendance.